What's good, my people? What's good? What's good? What's good? Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Chronic OG's podcast. I'm one half of the Chronic OGs, that boy they call Big Tone. Please, if you're listening for your first time, please do my brother Smitty and I a favor and hit the subscribe and like buttons. We talk about a lot of things here. Smitty don't get into politics, but it's sports, politics, relationships, funny stuff, what's going on in the social world, everything. So hopefully you tune in. So I find myself often getting asked, were we better off 4 years ago? That we weren't better off 4 years ago. That's the statement that's being told. So, one of my few viewers DM'd me one day earlier this week and asked me, why were we better off 4 years ago than we, why we weren't better off 4 years ago? Give him reasons why we were not better off 4 years ago. So instead of just automatically just responding back, I told myself, I'm going to do a little research, right? Some credible sources, listen to some people on the internet. There's some people I listen to. There's some people I don't listen to, that I listen to just for this particular project. Some people on social media, the whole nine. But so I'm going to go over a couple of reasons why we're better off today than we were 4 years ago. First of all, Roe versus Wade. Women were better off for Roe versus Wade. So here we go. So y'all remember this thing called the coronavirus? That was 4 years ago. So our wonderful president at the time, President Trump, he was the one that said he didn't take any responsibility for the spread of the coronavirus on American soil. He said that. He refused to lay out a strategy regarding coronavirus. Now, keep in mind, President Obama had 2 pandemic task force. They were specifically in place to handle the pandemic, any pandemics that happen, and keep the deaths at a minimum. Trump got rid of both of the task force and never replaced them. So here we go. On January, now all these dates are 2020. January 20th, January 22nd, he said, I'm not worried about the pandemic. We have it totally under control. That's what he said on January 22nd. January 24th, he praised China's efforts with handling the coronavirus. January 30th, he said, quote, we have very little problem, just 5 cases. Just 5 cases. So then he said, here we go. While we have just 5 cases, viruses are, in the meantime, in between time, the viruses went undetected for a month. A whole month, the shit just spreading, and we're not doing nothing about it. That means the test kits are delayed. That means all the materials, the delayed, everything is delayed because President Trump decided that everything was okay. On February the 24th, he said in a tweet, virus is under control in the U.S. So when we got to 15,000 cases, the administration, he said the administration did a very good job. It's going to disappear like a miracle. Remember that? Disappear like a miracle. Democratic hoax. So he blamed it on the Democrats. 3/11, March 2011, the testing capabilities are delayed because he didn't have a plan to put into action, just like he never does. First week of April, 10,000 deaths in the U.S. Second week of April, 25,000. Third week of April, 50,000. This was at the time when he and Jared Kushner were trying to find a way to just let the blue states suffer through coronavirus because it would help him politically. Let the blue states suffer because it would help him politically. I digress. So on 4/24, that's when he had the press conference, when he said, can we inject disinfectant inside our bodies and all this other stuff, and he wanted to, I think her name was Dr. Burks. He wanted Dr. Burks to sign off on it, and she had the most peculiar look on her face. She was so stuck because she knew that was some bullshit. First week of May, 100,000 deaths. Medical personnel are now being forced to reuse supplies. So I used to be a nurse. So if you take that mask off, if it's a disposable mask, you don't want to put it back on. You don't want to reuse those gloves, reuse that gown to go into another patient's room. But that's what they were forced to do 4 years ago. So, he said the U.S. met the moment when it came to coronavirus, when it came to COVID-19. Well, yeah, we did, but not like he would like you to believe. Because we led the world in cases and deaths. But guess what? In 2020, during the coronavirus is just kicking in. It's not even in fifth gear yet, but you know what's coming now? President Trump played golf 55 times in 2020. About 15%. But how long was COVID going on? He got all the technology and everything in the world to save his ass so he can go golf while the rest of us had to be stuck in the house. Remember, he didn't push the vaccines like he should have. He didn't push social distancing like he should have. He didn't push the use of the mask like he should have. And in the meantime, in between time, he caught COVID. He got the medication he needed. His ass got the vaccine. But then he shows up and he takes the mask off and tries to be Hitler again. I digress. Sorry. That's not fair. We had over 1 million people die from COVID as a result of complications, COVID-19. Over 1 million people. You probably had some family or friends that unfortunately passed away from it. I know I had a buddy, Mr. Butler, Kim Butler. Hope you watch me, man. I miss you, big homie. Shout out to the Butler family. Um, so research, studies, and everything has shown that had the forces been in place, or if there was a suitable strategy in place when the time the pandemic hit, at its peak, would have saved us about half. I don't know, just a half a million, 500,000 lives. That ain't shit, right? Think about that. Just because this motherfucker, sorry, I digress again. So you 4 years ago, when people asked, were we better off? 4 years ago, people was in fucking refrigerated trucks, stacked up, just dead bodies. Some of them unclaimed. People was passing away and couldn't even have a proper burial. Saying goodbye to their loved ones via FaceTime or Google Meet. That's where we were 4 years ago. It's exactly where we were 4 years ago. Stuck in a house. Domestic violence started to soar. Got tired of seeing this motherfucker every day, all day, every day. Kids couldn't go to school. Schools were shut down. Everybody's worried about, what are we going to do? What's next? And he worried about a chip shot on the 14th hole. That was 4 years ago. Remember how hard it was to get toilet paper 4 years ago? Remember how hard it was to get these fucking Clorox, these shits right here? The white jumps. Remember how hard it was to get that 4 years ago? It was hard. I can get that shit dime a dozen now. I'm telling you, listen, tens of millions of American, damn, I can't talk. Over 10 million Americans last year lost their jobs. The economy was headed to a shit show real fast, and it became a mess. Everything shut down. There was no more amusement parks. There was no more movie theaters. There was none of that shit 4 years ago. Everything shut down. People getting robbed left and right. Four years ago. You really think we was better off 4 years ago? So let's talk about now. Since everybody want to put it on Vice President Harris, is now her administration. But one thing, everybody know the vice president does not have a fucking policy. Stop saying, oh, you was in the White House for 4 years. What do you do? Her office not even in the fucking White House. So stop with that bullshit. Everybody to say that, tell me what was Mike Pence's policies. You know Mike Pence's policies? No. Stop with that bullshit. And then y'all act like she cannot have differences. She cannot change her mind from where she was 4 years ago to now. Trump changed his mind every fucking day. He didn't change political parties about 5 times. Right? That's once a week this motherfucker was playing golf while our people were suffering with no direction. And then everybody got mad at Dr. Fauci for trying to provide us with direction. I would love to know how many lives Dr. Fauci saved if there were no Dr. Fauci. I wish that study didn't come up. Because I promise you it's probably a couple 100,000, if not more. Shout out Dr. Anthony Fauci. But let's talk about now. Infrastructure bill passed. Insulin prices capped at $35. GDP growth is crazy right now. Stock market the other day hit an all-time high. Gas prices are going down. So when you ask the question, which were we better off at now or 4 years ago? 4 years ago, I was stuck in a fucking house and couldn't go nowhere. 4 years ago, I got COVID. 4 years ago, I couldn't go see my mom, who's now 84 years old. 4 years ago, couldn't leave the fucking house to do anything. Couldn't go to the gym, it was closed. Couldn't go to the mall, it was closed. Couldn't go to the movie theater, it was closed. The grocery store lines were so fucking long, it was ridiculous. Part of what made it so long is that people had to stand 6 feet apart. So you asked me, were we better off 4 years ago than we were now? Fuck no. Hell no. We weren't better off 4 years ago than we are right now. Thank y'all for listening. This is Big Tone. I'm out.